That was fun. I want to introduce you to a young lady. Her name's Jamie. She's been working with her company for several years and just kind of getting her feet underneath her and getting started. And one day she had an opportunity. Her boss came to her, her supervisor came to her and said, "I want you to take the lead on a project." She was kind of excited at the opportunity. A chance to kind of show herself a little bit in the company, being encouraged and welcomed to try some new things. But being a person of faith, she also felt that she needed to ask God. So she prayed about it and she trusted that God would give her the answer. And so she asked for the weekend to think it over. And over the weekend, the voices started going in her head. This is a good opportunity, but what if I mess it up? Why did he pick me? There's so many other people who are better qualified to do this than I am. And these voices kept mounting in her head over the weekend, and she saw this as God saying, this isn't the time. And the reality is, she was talking herself out of an opportunity. And so Monday morning, she goes in, she meets with her supervisor and says, "I just don't think I'm ready yet." And so the supervisor gives it to another person who'd been there less time than she had, who took the opportunity and ran with it, did a great job, and the company prospered from it. I share this with you because there are times in our lives when we have these voices and these giants that hold us back. We start a series today on timeless faith stories. It's taking a look at the stories of the Bible that we often use as VBS stories, as Sunday school church stories, church school stories, but they're really stories that are meant for all of us, whether you're 8 years old or 5 years old. Yes, you. Whether you're 20 years old, 40, 60, 80, these are stories that relate to us throughout life. And so we're starting, obviously, with David and Goliath and facing the giants in our lives. These stories that have been chosen throughout the summer are stories that I asked the kids last week to talk to you about. That was the homework assignment. It was to kind of give me some material for the summer. So we have this opportunity to go through. But here's what I want you to realize, is that Jamie, as she went into this story, was like the Israelite soldiers. She let the voices of the giants outspeak the faith of her life. How many times have we done that in our lives? Now, I'm not going to read the whole story of David and Goliath because it's a long story. And the story that I am going to read, I'm going to break it down. We're going to read 1 Samuel 17, 32 to 50, but I'm going to break it into chunks, and we're going to walk through this facing our giants with David as he walks through it. So I want you to hear these words as we start with verses 32 to 37. Hear these words. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go fight against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he's been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." May God bless our understanding of the reading of his holy and divine word. Amen. Let me give you a little context here. David is 16 years old. He is a young man. Goliath stands about 8-9 feet tall. We got a big disparity. And we're talking like Andre the Giant type big. We're not talking tall and thin. We're talking tall and big. This is a big man. David is 16 years old. All of his brothers have gone to serve in Saul's army. David has been kept back at home to tend to the flocks, to take care of the sheep and the livestock. David has already been anointed as the new king. He is the one to replace Saul, and Saul is unaware of this. David's father, Jesse, sends him out to the front line to bring food and supplies for his brothers and for the other soldiers that are out there. When he gets out there, he sees what's happening. He sees all the Israelite soldiers just kind of standing back and wonder what's happening. Why is nobody stepping forward? Why is nobody speaking into this? Why is nobody taking action? This giant is up there making a loud noise and is intimidating everybody else. But when we start facing our giants with childlike confidence, things change. Did you notice David's bravado? He's like, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. I'll take care of this. 16-year-old young man, I got this. I'm going to take care of this. Nobody else may have to do it, but he's got the courage, not because of his years, not because of his age, but because of his experiences. He doesn't do it because of ego. He does it because of where he's been. How many of us would take on a lion or a bear to save a sheep? Any hands? I'm not seeing any. I don't know if you're at home. If you're willing to take it on, I would dare you to type it in. I would do that. We don't have the experiences. But David did. But did you notice what he said? The experiences that he had were because of God's faithfulness. He recalled what God had done. When the paw of the lion or the paw of the bear raised his hand, it was God who delivered him. It was God who protected him. It wasn't anything that he did. He did it because of God's goodness, because of God's power. And here's the thing, is that childlike faith isn't naive. It's experiential. Childlike courage, childlike faith is experiential. How many times have we seen our children stand at the edge of the pool with mom or dad inside saying jump? And what do? At first they're hesitant, aren't they? And then they realize mom and dad's got them. And they jump, and they get out, and they jump, and they get out, and they jump, and they get out, and mom and dad turn their back and they jump. Because they know that mom or dad is going to have them. They do it over and over because they know and they remember what courage looks like when others have their back. What deliverances in your past have you forgotten? Where has God been for you that you've forgotten that God has delivered you time and time again? And so those voices have started to build up in our heads. Those voices that cause us to bounce back. Our story continues, verse 38 to 42, as we look at those giants. The story reads, it says, then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. Again, now picture this. David is 16 years old. Saul is probably a 35, 40-year-old king. He's being dressed in the king's tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword around the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. I cannot go in these, he said to Saul, because I am not used to them. So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand and 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. Meanwhile, the Philistine with his shield bearer in front of him kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said, "and I will give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." How's that for a giant in your head? How's that for intimidation? Goliath comes out and he starts mocking him. Right off the bat, he starts mocking him. He's been doing this to the Israelite army. Every morning he comes out and says, "Who's going to stand against me?" Loud, prosperous, boisterous. That's the better word. Intimidating. He's got volume and size, power and might behind him. And all the Israelite soldiers just step back. They want nothing to do with it. Goliath has been intimidating them. He's intimidated Saul. Saul is the king, doesn't even have the courage to say, "You go." Next, we'll wear him out. It may cost us 50 people, but eventually we'll wear him down. He doesn't even have the courage to do that. And so Goliath sees this boy coming at him. It's like, oh, this is going to be easy intimidation. I can scare this guy, no problem. And so he starts mocking him. The crowd stays silent. But here's the reality, is that the giants that we face in life often speak louder than our faith. Whether it be fear, inadequacy, trauma, opposition. These are the giants that stand out to us. More often, our giants that affect us are internal. They're not external like Goliath. They're things that we put on ourselves or have been put upon us that hold us back, that prevent us from moving forward, from moving in an advanced direction, allowing God to lead us. We face these giants day in and day out. We have fear of failures. We have doubts of abilities. We have fear of what's next. And because of them, we hide within ourselves. We don't take the chances. We limit our abilities instead of trusting where God has led us. So what voices or threats are causing you to shrink back from God's call today? What are opportunities that are being presented to you, but in your back of your mind, you hear this giant saying, what am I, a dog that you're coming at me at? Who do you think you are that you can stand up to me? That you actually can do this? What are those voices that are holding you back from that? We all have them in one way or another. When we reclaim our voices, especially the voice of faith, those giants have a tendency to shrink. Hear these words from verse 45. David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands. Oh, to talk like that. Nothing like a 16-year-old young man talking a little trash talk. I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, he says. You're going down. I can only imagine what Goliath would have done. Somebody's actually speaking up to him, and it's a 16-year-old. All these men and armies, soldiers, have stood up to him and backed away. But this 16-year-old comes up and says, bring it. Give me your best because I've got better. That's got to be a little intimidating. And I can only imagine Goliath had to stop in his tracks for a moment. He's not used to being spoken to like this. And the fact that he'd already been hollering at David by his gods now has David's God being thrown back at him. Can you only imagine the experience that he was going through? This was out of the norm. This was not common. But this is what happens when we're actually willing to speak to our giants with the voice of God. Knowing that God is there to deliver us, that God is willing to back us up and has us, that he's going to catch us when we get there. Sorry, technology issue. David's reframing this battle. This battle is no longer about force. This battle is no longer about size. This battle is about worship. This is about honoring the Lord God. This battle is about spirit, faith, trust. Not in David's ability, not in ours, but in God's ability. In God's ability to lead us and support us. When we speak faith, we reclaim the power to declare God's goodness. And too many times we've forgotten to do that today. We're afraid to speak the faith. We don't want to offend anyone. Well, they might not be a believer and we don't want to offend them. They might be Hindu or Muslim. And so we don't want to speak our faith and feel like we're imposing upon them. And what we're doing is we're silencing our voice of faith. We're silencing God's goodness in the world. We don't have to necessarily evangelize, but we can speak our faith. I know I can do this because God has delivered me. I know I can do this because when I failed before, God has still been there. I know I can do this because I trust that the Lord has given me the strength and the skills and the ability, the courage to do what is needed. And so what would victory look like? What would victory look like if we were actually to speak the goodness of God? We hear the end of our story at verse 48. It says, as the Philistines moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead, and the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. He ran toward the battle line. He faced his giant, literally, and was victorious by faith, not by force. Goliath has a huge sword. David's got a stone. Goliath has got might. David has God. This was not a battle won by force. This was a battle that was won by faith. He doesn't hesitate. He runs toward the obstacle. That might be part of the childlike courage that we just go and do. I mean, how many times have we seen our kids run off to do something like, wait, not yet. You're not ready, or that's going to hurt. They just go and do. They don't hesitate. But David reached into his bag, took out one stone. One obedient act of faith, and let it fly. It was by his hand that the stone was thrown. It was by God's hand that the stone was directed. It was by God's hand that the stone hit and made the impact. God doesn't need our strength. God does not matter. It does not matter how strong we are. What God needs is our willingness to trust, our willingness to follow, our willingness to accept his goodness and his guidance. That's what's needed in our lives. That's what he's asking for us. So I don't know what stones you have in your pouch this morning, if you've even picked up stones. Do you have a stone that you need to overcome lack of confidence? Do you have a stone in there to give you the courage to step forward to whatever's next? Do you have a stone in there to be willing to say something to a loved one that you've been separated from? What stone are you holding in your pocket, afraid to take it out, to put it into the sling and let God guide it? Not to let God guide it so that you are victorious by faith, not by force. What stone of faith do you need to throw this week? What is the giant that you need to face today? This is not one of those weeks where I'm going to give you a challenge to say, go out this week and do this. But this is one of those stories that I want you to reflect on, to think about. For we all have giants that hold us back. We all have voices in our heads that are keeping us from moving forward. We've all lost that childlike faith, with the exception of a couple. What do we need to rebuild that? To rebuild that trust and to reclaim that voice, that boldness of God's. Where can we reclaim the voice of God's goodness in our lives? Today, now, so we can face our giants and be victorious over them by faith.